guess it says we're live, so we must be live now.
Yay.
Thank you, Jonnhy, for accepting the invitation. I know we were kind of going back and forth a little bit and trying to figure out a date. Usually that's the way it works out though. And I usually that's why I seldom make like a list out of guests that I want. This was a kind of a weird thing to begin the year where I actually had like a goal that I wanted to do. This is the first time I've done it that way. But I always forget how much back and forth I need to do to be able to find a time that coincides with the both of us. Um, Usually my guests are a little bit easier. My schedule is the one that's really weird because I work 3 shifts. So sometimes like today I'm working a mid shift, so I don't go to work till 2 o'clock. So I said I was glad that you were available in the morning. I said that's perfect. It's going to work out because if not, I was going to have to push it out at least a couple more weeks because towards the end of this weekend, I'll be in your neck of the woods. I'm going to Florida, and
Oh man,
so
you'll get some good weather down there this time of year.
yeah, we're gonna go. I guess my wife's friend, her daughter's. I don't guess that's what's going on. She's getting married, so we're going to her wedding, which surprised me. I don't know. I guess she must really want to travel. But so we're. She said we're going, so we're going. It's one of those deals where it's like, all right.
You got to make the
Uh,
ladies happy.
oh yeah, and so I said, all right. Well, just I do have a. We're going to Orlando, and just south of there, I have a really really good friend who also does YouTube stuff, Aquafunk. So I'm gonna go hang out with him and then see what kind of trouble we get in for a day. And
Well,
so
that'd be
that
fun.
was that was kind of the trade off of not the trade off, but that was kind of like, all right, if we're gonna go, let me at least get one day to do some YouTube stuff, and then the rest of
No,
the
I
time we'll
appreciate you having me.
yeah. So, but
Yeah,
yeah, no,
thank you for having me on.
I've been wanting to talk to you because your channel is I find it really really interesting, and I find it really interesting for several reasons. Um, some of it is the stuff you're doing, but the other thing is the whole thing that I've kind of heard about it, but nobody has really openly talked about, and that is doing. You see, and this is a bad term. I don't know, just filterless tanks, which are not really filterless. I guess they're just biological filtration, and keeping fish outdoors year round, um, and especially not having to pull fish in and stuff like that. And I thought that was really really interesting because um, there's always that whole argument that if you keep fish and you overwinter them, that they're gonna die. And I think your channel is a pretty good proof that if unless well, I guess anybody that's in the southern states could basically keep fish year round outdoors with certain species and not have any issues. I don't know if that's really the case if you live up north, where it totally freezes over, solid for the remainder of the year. But at least
Right,
for
right.
us that are in the southern sections of the United States, it seems like that's a real possibility. And that was a couple of things that I wanted to talk to you about today.
Yeah,
And
I had not been able to dig up much information on that when I started to explore it at first, and it's very mysterious. I don't know if it's guarded. Like it seems like to me that people would have been doing this forever. This is the most natural way to keep fish is just like out in your backyard. Uh, but yeah, it was really hard to source any information when I started, and it's been very educational for me um, through the journey that I've been taking here for the past several years.
now, is that something that you consciously decided to do, or was it one of those like, oh, I forgot to bring them in, and you're
No,
like
it was
doing that?
very conscious decision. So like I used to have a couple of other YouTube channels discussing other topics in years past when I was able to do more athletic things.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
and now that I'm an old man, I just keep fish. But no, like I had been on YouTube and I really I have like a natural affinity for Japanese culture. So I've
Okay.
been growing bonsai trees since I was like 8 years old. I've had a lot of involvement in horticultural practices from Japan. So when I got back into keeping fish as a grown man, um, I started watching all these Japanese language videos on YouTube, and I didn't have any idea what they were talking about, but I was just watching their videos, and they were having these Medaka outdoors, and their little ponds were freezing over. And I know how the climate is in Japan, um, because of the bonsai relation, because all the literature in the 80s was all from Japan, and people in America were doing a lot of wrong things because we were trying to do what you did in a different climate. So I had some insight into that, and I thought, well, if I can make some of this stuff that I think I'm seeing here kind of adapt to my climate, it's just going to be a lot easier way to keep fish, was really my whole thought process, and I was just copying what those folks were doing.
Yeah, I think Ryo is Ryo Watanabe, I think it's his name. He has a YouTube channel, and I noticed he's the very first person that I really started hearing talking about rice fish. I mean, you always hear about the koi and the goldfish being really big in Asia, but he was the very first one that I really started. Um, he would, and it was always like an off comment because he would walk by the garden and he'd go, "Oh, and that planter that my uncle's keeping, he's keeping rice fish
Yeah,
in there," and it
I've
was just
seen it.
something,
I've seen those videos.
and it was something like really quick, and it was like, okay. And then I guess people started really asking him questions about the rice fish because he started getting a little bit more, and then he would do like a full length video on them, and that's where he was talking about that those were pretty hardy fish and they could overwinter, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But that was probably, I don't know, like 3 years ago that I started hearing, the first time I heard about them. And then all of a sudden, this last year, it really hit me in the face, the whole rice fish here in the States. I mean, as far as
Yeah, yeah,
they've probably been kept here longer, but as far as hitting social media, it seems like last year was the very first year where all of a sudden a lot of people started keeping them. You had Corey from Aquarium Cobb, like one of the bigger channels, first ones to talk about this species of fish, and that kind of sent me down that rabbit hole where I was looking for more information. Came across your channel, and then when I hit on your channel, I was like, oh shit, I can relate to a lot of what's going on because you were doing a lot of similar stuff that I've been doing for a while, but you were actually very open about it. You were making full blown videos and doing all that stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, so I'm not that crazy in doing some of the things that I'm doing. I kind of had an understanding behind it, but it's always kind of nice when you find somebody else that will validate what your findings are. And I was like, oh shit, okay, so I'm not the only one. This is not a coincidence. There's actually some real information behind biological filtration. At the end of the day, that's really what it is. And that all
yeah,
kind of started coming about from watching pond videos. You watch all these pond videos, and a lot
yeah,
of them are using like bog systems, and
yeah,
they do some mechanical filtration, I guess, because you have to pass the water to whatever media it's in. But the reality is, the
I
majority of that
I have
filtration
thought
is
about this a
biological.
lot. Yes, it's a lot
what
of
what are your
biological
thoughts?
filtration, but the under gravel filter system that we use in aquariums, which you and I have both had experience with, which is the antiquated system according to all the scientists online. Uh, in addition to a bog filter, which I just had to rebuild one. If anybody caught my last video, I had a super disaster over the winter storm and it burst one of my bog filters. But when you take all the media out, which was like, I don't know, 60, 70 pounds of stone, lava rock, and some leca that I had in there, I kind of had it layered. There's a lot of biological material. Like there's a lot of fish waste caught in that gravel. So it's doing a lot of mechanical filtration, even if you're just using gravel. And to be honest, I hate to admit that everybody else has better ideas than I do, but none of this is really my thing. Um, Justin's fish shop in San Francisco, which I can't remember what it's called, Oceanside something. Corey from Aquarium Co-op did a video, or somebody related to Aquarium Co-op did a video about that guy Justin and his fish shop, and he was talking about most of his tanks are filterless, but they had like 6 inches of gravel in the bottom. And that kind of got me thinking, because I'm from a rural area. I've seen systems like that where people have filtered massive amounts of water through gravel and sand, and it turns out to be clean drinking water if you trust it. And like, I mean, the water I drink comes through the same way. I collect it from a spring that comes out of the mountainside right here, and it's being filtered in that same way. Like, there's not a Fluval FX6, on the side of this hill over here. It's just going through the rocks and the dirt and all that stuff. And it seems to me like it's just a much more natural way to filter stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I where I started playing around with filterless systems is Kevin Novak, because he was talking about building plenums. Now there's a lot of controversy behind his channel, whether he's a doctor, he's not a doctor. I don't know. I'm not gonna sit here and argue that.
Yeah, he says some things I don't necessarily understand or agree with.
Yeah, but the principle of what he was doing, that's what caught me. To see, what happened to me was I started the aquarium hobby late 80s, early 90s. And predominantly back then, the filtration systems was either acrylic box filters or under gravel filters. And I think under gravel filters were a lot less expensive, I think, even at that time. But anyways, I ended up buying an under gravel filter for my aquarium, and it worked great. I mean, I thought it water clarity was really good. It did what it was supposed to do, and they were kind of like the standard, I guess, for as far as filtration was considered during that time. And I go away from the hobby for several years. I mean, I probably like at the beginning of the 90s, I break down the tank, and I don't go back into the hobby until like around, I don't know, 2010 or so. Somewhere in there is where I start getting curious about doing the hobby again. And I start looking at YouTube, and I start watching videos, and all of a sudden, under gravel filters are the villains of the movie. Everybody was like, "Oh, you're gonna kill your fish if you use." And I don't know what trend I came into, because I noticed now doing YouTube for quite some time, we go through some cycles, right?
Yeah.
And
it's like a magazine.
For a while there, it seemed like underground filters were making a push back into the scene. But they're still the villains, I guess, in a lot of people's minds. But I never understood why, and I couldn't figure that out. And I thought, well, maybe I was just lucky back then. And came across Novak's channel, and I started listening to some of the stuff that he's talking about, and I thought, oh, you know what? That kind of makes sense. A lot of his ideas were borrowed from the saltwater world, where they've been using plenums for their setups. So it's obviously a setup that works. So, I started playing around with that and started setting up different versions of plenums, and I noticed that they were working. And then I came across that video, and it's Aquarium Co-op. As a matter of fact, I think I queued it up. So that people understand the story that we're talking about, because it is very interesting. The way that store was is set up and managed. It's also a store where you're the one that's responsible for getting the fish out of the tank, right. which I thought that was pretty unique.
Philosophically, in opposition to most of our hometown stores here in America.
Yeah. I took the audio, but this is the store. It's Ocean's Aquariums.
Ocean Aquarium, that's it.
Yeah, Ocean Aquariums in San Francisco. This shop has been there for a long time. I forget what the owner had said, but it's not aesthetically pretty, but it is very beautiful in a different sort of way. Um, but you look at all these tanks, and I noticed the same thing that you were talking about, where he was talking about the deep substrate underground. I mean, the deep substrate in the aquarium,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that to me played into a another content creator who's been, for a while, and he's also very controversial, which is Father Fish. And
yeah,
he's always talked about deep substrates. That was amongst other things, but deep substrate is the stuff that connected with me and this guy's store, and kind of something where I was doing with my own aquariums. So I've kind of taken bits and pieces of information from all these other people, and I've come to the conclusion that uh, I think a lot of it was by accident, but my aquariums tended to be deeper substrates with a plenum in the bottom. And a plenum is just really a void, a space, so that
yeah.
it's not all the way down on the surface. And I found that to be probably my best filtration systems that I have for my aquariums. They're the setups with the most water clarity that I've had. And so I don't know. I wish I understood the science more behind that, but but it was nice when all of a sudden I come across your channel and you're kind of doing. I see a lot of similarities in the way that you
Yeah.
are doing what you're doing, and I was like, okay, there's got to be something to this then. Um, so and that was one of the reasons why I was like, I need to talk to Jonnhy to see what's going on. And I've it seems like we've watched some of the same information.
Yeah.
and
Well,
and
YouTube goes both ways. Like the good stuff filters to the top, but there's a lot of things that get left out, and you really have to dig around for. Um, but yeah, it seems like you and I have both hit on a lot of the same information that has worked. Uh, and I've watched a bunch of your videos. I think you got a lot of cool things going on. I really like how you're approaching a lot of these things. It is very similar to what
mm,
I have found. Um, and what I can't seem to get away from is the similarities between what we're doing with a Planet Aquarium and what I did as a kid trying to grow bonsai trees. There is such an overlap of what is going on that like I've started to just tell people that my aquariums are just big pots that I'm growing plants in, because there's so much of that overlap. And when you see that gravel system, and then you look at like how, you know, a professional nursery grows bonsai, it's very similar.
yeah, that was the other thing that I found fascinating is was watching the bonsai stuff that you're doing. But and again, YouTube has this way of the algorithm giving you information that you didn't know you wanted. But all of a
Yeah.
sudden, after kind of digging in, I found your channel. There's another guy in San Diego that does bonsais. He's not doing bonsais and aquariums. He's doing bonsais as one part of his hobby, and he keeps aquariums. But you're actually have them somewhat in the same room. But I've been watching recently, and I don't know how this works. Maybe you might be able to explain it. But I've out of the Asian channels and some of the aquascapes they've been doing is they're actually setting up bonsais above the water line with the roots in the water. Now, is that something that's really going to work for a bonsai? Because I thought bonsais was kind of restricting the growth of the roots, or maybe I don't understand bonsais in the
So
principle itself.
yeah, like I would love to somehow figure out how to make a thumbnail to attract enough of an audience to make a video about trimming the roots of your house plants in your aquarium. Um, there is like a little bit of knowledge to that, but overall with me, I have several bonsai now that are growing in my aquariums, and they're very successful, and I just treat them like I do a normal tree outside, or a indoor bonsai really. um, you have to, as you get to know it, just like with aquariums, like you know this thing needs a water change,
Yeah.
you know this tank is getting unhealthy for XYZ reason. With a tree, I can pretty much just look at it, go over and touch it a little bit, and check a couple of things and say, well, this needs to be repotted. Um, In the aquarium, it's far easier because like the roots are just hanging right there in front of me. So every day when I go by, I can inspect the entire root system of these trees, which is a thing I can't do outdoors in a pot as easily. Uh, so to me, I find it an even better way of growing these things, and I'm trimming the roots back regularly. I don't like when my plants above the water grow into the substrate.
Okay.
I think that that is detrimental to the longevity of my tanks because I don't
Oh,
really want those plants pulling nutrients out of my like substrate. If I have a dirted tank or something like that, uh, I want to keep the roots in the water column. Um, any plant that you have doesn't feed from old roots. They only feed from the newest tips of the root. So when we're growing bonsai outside, the reason why those trees can be ultimately healthy, like something that just came out of, the most meticulous greenhouse in the world, is because even though they're 1,000 years old, is because all the roots are relatively young. And that trimming back of the roots and letting the new ones grow out and trimming them back and letting the new ones grow out is really like a complete rejuvenation of the tree's life support system. And again, when it's submerged in water, it's like the best case scenario because the harm that you may cause to your tree if it's outside in soil is going to be from it drying out after you trim those roots. And
mm.
so if the whole root system is submerged in living water where there's microbes and organisms, and I got little shrimp in there, cleaning off all the parts that are dying. Um, it's like the best case scenario for growing those trees. It's really remarkable.
Yeah. You've kind of hit on something that's kind of making me look at, and like this one that I have back here. Recently, I've been having
Mhm.
some issues with not having enough nutrients for the plants that are in there, but that pothos did exactly what you said you don't want it to do. The roots are in the substrate. So now I'm just running through my head. I got to go in there and snip all of these off. I'll tell you what though.
I bet that pothos looks great though, right?
Oh yeah, that's exactly
Yeah.
what I was gonna say. It's gotten a sudden burst of growth, and it looks really nice. Like I've never seen it
Yeah,
before.
he's in there just fat boying it up, man, just eating all the donuts, and there's
And
gonna
the
be
leaves are
nothing
getting
left
pretty
for
big too.
anybody else.
So
Yeah.
so it's like
Well,
now
like
as
you
you
can trade off with that stuff. Like if you prioritize those plants above the water and you're just like, well, I don't care what happens down here on the bottom. The same effect of cleaning that water column is happening.
oh, okay. Yeah, so and I'm thinking back because at one point I had a what's it called? Water lily? No. Um it's a lily
Peace lily?
that we peace lily. And I was thinking the Spanish name, and I'm like, no, it doesn't translate because they call it child's cradle in Spanish, cuna de niño.
Mm.
But so I was like, it's a lily, but it's
Yeah,
not
because
that.
it's got the little
Yeah, that's what they call it in Spanish. But I remember having one in a 20 long, and the roots hit the bottom of that substrate, and it really started taking off. But it didn't last for. I mean, it did that for about a year, and then it just. I guess it must have consumed any nutrients that were in that substrate, and it just started dying back. And I could never figure out what
yep,
happened with that tank. That tank didn't have any
and
other
it'll wreck your
plants.
whole tank.
Yeah, it didn't have any other plants in there other than some guppies. And but I pulled it out once it was, it just died back completely. And I to this day I couldn't figure, I didn't understand what it was, but I had let the roots grow all the way into that substrate, and they were in there when I pulled that thing out. I mean, it had gone. I put it in one corner, and it almost made 3/4 of the length of that aquarium, where all the roots were in the bottom. And I was like, "Whoa, this thing really rooted in." So even at that time, I was still even more perplexed as to why it had died because I was thinking it's in the substrate; it should be doing better. But I guess it just they just pull a lot more than what it can put back in. And
Yeah, I've had that same exact experience, and it just reminded me of experiences I've had, like growing peppers or tomatoes or something like that. When you don't, if you're trying to grow them with compost and you don't have enough nutrients in there, they just kind of peter out after a certain amount of time. And I was seeing exactly what you're describing. Uh, and I had that happen to 2 or 3 tanks, and I was like, I think I know what's going on here. And so now I'm just pretty diligent about trimming the roots back, and I do it very aggressively. Um, and they thrive, they really do. It makes everything more healthy because when you cut them back and they start growing those brand new roots out, it's only pulling out of the water column, and I can adjust that with fertilizers or water changes, or that's easy to manipulate.
yeah, and I know one of the questions that came up is that roots need trimming. We're talking about plants that are immersed in the tank and they're growing their roots in the water. That's the ones that we're talking about
Yes.
trimming back and not letting them hit the substrate. Because I mistakenly have done that. This one is going through that point right now, which is good because immediately after this live stream, guess what I'm doing? I'm going to trim all those roots out of there to avoid it. Really pulling everything out that's in there and keep it thriving because
Yeah, just cut them
yeah,
back to, like, 3 inches, 2 inches of a root ball, and
okay.
it'll flush right back out. You don't have to worry about it that much like a normal container plant because it's not gonna dry out.
Mm, okay, well that's something I was not aware of, and now it makes a lot of sense as to what I've seen happen sometimes with plants that do hit the substrate. I mean, they you can't beat the growth that you get when they do that, but
Yeah.
it's obviously not something that's going to be able to be sustainable in the long course. And I hardly ever fertilize in this tank recently. I've been dumping a lot of fertilizer into it, trying to keep up because some of the other plants that I have in there, they're starting to get little small pinholes, which I've never had before. And I noticed it when the roots hit the bottom of this thing, which has been now maybe about 2 or 3 weeks since it did that, or probably a little bit longer, probably
Yeah.
about a month. And I'm noticing it now. It's like, I wonder what's going on. What's the situation? But now that you've mentioned that, it makes perfect sense.
Now that is one other kind of advantage of using the fired clay substrates that I have talked about on my channel, and I know that you've had some experience with as well. Uh, because those roots can't really get into the like the fluorite products.
Okay. Yeah, no, I've used the kitty litter. And
Yeah.
again, this is going back to Novak. One of the things that I did find interesting though is because I've played around with that is adding liquid ferts to the media, and it does
Yeah.
absorb it, and it basically becomes an active substrate. And that to me was very very interesting and fascinating. And I noticed that I have one that is just kitty litter and an under gravel filter, and I noticed that when I would put fertilizer on that one, because the filter itself is going to pull it down because of the way it
Hmm.
works. Um, the plants have always thrived in there because it's getting that fertilizer down to the roots where the plants are going to be able to
The
use it.
only problem I've had with any of that is finding, even with safety zorb. You can buy a bag of that stuff, which is not very expensive. I think it's $8, but I've bought whole bags of it that were not fired to the same degree that other bags were, and so it just kind of broke down. And that's something that with any kind of kitty litter product that I've tried with anything, even with potted plants, um, I can't find a product that is consistently hard enough to not
Mm.
just fall apart into dust.
It was funny because even Novak went away from it, but the very first video that I saw him talk about it, it was a red bag that he got from Walmart, which is I still find it there. I don't know if it's where they've got to have different processing facilities because he talked about that same product, the same brand had turned into mush for him. I've been using it
Yeah.
uh what, 4 years now, and I've never had that issue. And I've rebought that same brand, so it's got to probably be a processing plant that is either cutting corners or they're just using different kind of clay, and it's got to definitely
Yeah.
it's got to definitely matter significantly, because I have not experienced those issues. As a matter of fact, one of the things that and I still have it everywhere, and all my aquariums have it, because eventually, I don't know about you, but every time I break down the tank, I don't throw away the substrate. I just mix it in with
Yeah.
fresh stuff. And so there's all of these tanks have at one point or another, they have some of that clay stuff in there, and you could really tell. I mean, it really stands out from the other gravel, and it hasn't broken down.
Yeah.
But I know that was an
Well,
issue,
I
which is
think
why he
that's
had switched.
I think that's one thing that he totally got right, is that it's obvious that, and nobody really thought about it before, but he was the first one, I think, to say it, is that those products like kitty litter or safety absorb, they're designed to soak in ammonia. Um, and that's essentially what we want them to do with those nutrients. If you just squirt some liquid fertilizers in your tank, the most ideal scenario is that your substrate just soaks it all in and then releases it back to the plants. And I think the safety absorb does a great job. And if I could ever find a kitty litter that would work for me, that would probably be equally as good.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's and I guess that used to be kind of a common thing back in the 70s, that people were using it to precisely to grow plants. But and I don't know if because by default it was pulling any excess nutrients in the water column, and by consequences it was activating the substrate, and that's why I don't know if they understood the concept or they accidentally stumbled into that, but that's why they were using it. And then it just kind of went away. And I remember commenting in once, and people were thinking I was crazy because I wanted to use kitty litter. It's like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna have the cat piss in there or what? It's like, no, it's just it's another source, another way, I guess, of doing it. And I've always been very curious by nature, so I like to try stuff out. And initially,
Yeah.
that's what kind of my fish room has been. It's been a sort of experiments of the different of different, I guess, methods of keeping aquariums. Because I've always wanted to know why. When somebody said, "Oh, that won't work," I always kind of wanted to figure out why. And maybe it's an error in the use, or maybe it just doesn't work. So I've done that over the course of the time that I've been keeping aquariums. And you know, most of this stuff, I guess, where people don't really explain is it's not that it won't work, but it might not work for the application you want to use it for, because they're not all universal. Like, I understand under
Yeah.
gravel substrates and trying to use it with like geophagus or Oscars that want to nest in the bottom of the tank. It's probably not really going to work out for you, because the nature of those fish is to remove the substrate to make a clear spot. And if
Well,
that's the
even
behavior of the
with
fish.
Corys,
Mhm.
like, who doesn't want some Corydoras in their tank? Like, those are great fish to have. There's so many cool ones. But those fired clay substrates that actually grow the plants the best for me in my water are the worst for those fish. So I have to make compromises. I still have tanks with just sand. And I have tanks with under gravel filters with sand. Um, but yeah, you get into some weird compromises that you have to make with certain fish. I personally am so plant centric that I probably make more compromises for the plants than I do for any fish that I have.
Well, it's no different than somebody that aquascapes a tank. The priority are not the fish. It's the scape that they're building. It's that's the one thing that I've come to realize with this hobby, is that even within such a niche hobby, there's still smaller niches. Everybody has a different idea of what they're trying to accomplish. You can't compare somebody that's doing aquascaping with somebody that's keeping fish. It's or somebody that's breeding fish. A breeding setup is going to be very, very different in appearance
It's like
than
heavy metal music nowadays, man. There's 247 different genres of it. and it all seems the same from the outside, but when you get inside there, apparently they're all different, right? Uh,
Yeah, I guess I've kind of lost. System of a Down was the last metal band, I guess, if you want to call it. It's not even metal though.
well,
I don't know what you would call it, but they were like the last band that I actually followed. Ever since then, I don't know
I
what's out
can't
there.
say I know any of it personally, but I teach it to kids most of the
Oh,
week,
okay.
and so I get to listen to a lot of it. It yeah, it's there's some weird stuff out there these days.
Yeah, I
I'm more of
wouldn't
a
even
R&B guy
begin.
myself.
And you're teaching metal, huh?
But there's a
That's
bunch of weird metal out there, and it reminds me of the fish keeping hobby. Every time I get one of these weird these 14-year-old boys that wants to learn some genre of heavy metal music I've never heard of, I always think, well, there's such a broad spectrum here. And it's just like you're talking about. Like your tanks look great, but like I don't see anything behind you that really looks like anything in my room. Unfortunately, all the lights are out, and so we're not in my fish room. Otherwise, it'd just look like a dark cave. But you've got a different thing going than I do, and it's like the difference in everybody's little style and thing. When we have it on display here on YouTube, it's so cool to see folks like yourself. Um, I mean, you in particular, you really inspired me to just, I'm just going to go ahead and make some videos and talk about this stuff. Um, because like, why not? You know, I don't, I don't really intend to, get any notoriety or level of fame from this, but, it's really fun getting on here and interacting with this community because everybody's got these wildly different ideas. And, I don't know about you, man, but every tank I set up is totally different. Even if I
yeah.
use the same exact formula, I always get a slightly different outcome. Um, and I don't think it's because I'm retarded or something. I think it's like the nature of the hobby.
Yeah, I actually when I had I had a well, I've had several racks, but one of them I had purposely set up two tanks exactly the same. They were 10-gallon tanks because I wanted to see because I kept hearing that, and I said, "Oh, let me see that." And yeah, I had some tanks that were they exactly it was just sand, same plants, um, same fish because they were just a different line of guppies, but they were guppies at the end of the day, and they would act different. I mean, they're they're all a little different. They all have, and I couldn't explain to what it was. One of them stayed cloudy forever. I just couldn't get it to clear up. I mean, it would eventually, but I knew if I did a large water change in that tank, um, it would be cloudy. I just leave it alone, not touch it and leave it alone. And eventually, what I could do exactly the same thing to the tank that was set up right next to it, and it would be fine. This tank up here, it's a 50-gallon lowboy. I can drain it completely, refill it up, and the water will be crystal clear. This is the 125 I got down here. And if I do more than 50% on it, I'm going to be dealing with cloudy water for weeks. Um, I don't know why. And they're both set up pretty much the same way. The rest of them, like this one back here, I'm real brutal with that one too. I always say more than
Well, that's a
100%
beautiful
because my
tank.
thing, thank you. What I usually do, and I've showed people, I'll put the siphon hose on one end and the refill on the other,
And yeah,
and I'll let it, and I'm just circulating water through there, and it's more than 100% because by when it's all
yeah,
said and
yeah.
done, and I've done that religiously with all of my tanks. But this is the only one that I can't do that. This is the only one that's temperamental. This is the only one that if I do more than a certain amount, I'm going to be dealing with cloudy water, and it just makes
It's
no sense.
funny you say that, man, because I have a 35-gallon cube that is almost the same story. Like it's the touchiest little thing. It's like a little deer in the woods. If you scare it, it's gonna go crazy. But as long as you keep it as long as I don't do anything to it and I just kind of let it do, it's perfect. But every time I've gotten there and really done like a plant trimming, and I've disturbed anything at all, or I do a big water change, it goes south on me. So that's funny, that, you know, those same experiences.
Yeah, and I'm not the only one that's experienced that. I've heard other people talk about it. I know LRB Lucas, and his are all set up. They're all the same size tanks and all that stuff. And he has tanks too, where he goes, "Hey, anytime I do anything with it, it'll get, you get a bacterial bloom, and
Yeah.
you just write it out. That's all you're really doing. The only thing is that it sucks because everything looks crystal clear, and then you have that one there that looks like you put a little few drops of milk
And if
in
anybody
the
comes
water.
in there, they go, "Why don't you fix that?" You know?
Yeah, and it's kind of like, well, it's just got to run its course, and it
Yeah, you
sucks
just gotta.
because it's just going to be, it's just a matter. There's nothing you can do other than let it work itself out, because you can start
Yeah,
doing all
just
sorts
go
of
through
water
its season.
changes, and you're just going to start having, just make it worse. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's the only one that I've ever had an issue with. And unfortunately I found out because I treated it just like everything else that I do in here, and it backfired. And it's like, it's the biggest tank that I have too in the fish room. And it's the
So
one
how
that
many
would
tanks do
always
you
be
have
clouded.
in your room right now?
One, there's what, four back here, no, five, so that's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 in a terrarium, so 12 right now.
All right. So like, how big is your room?
It's a garage. It's a 2-car garage, but it's not
Okay.
all tanks. They used to be at one point, but not anymore. I really,
Well,
really
what I
cut
was
back.
wondering is like with that 125 and with your 50-gallon low boy, like, do you have any concern, especially with that 50-gallon, with the um amount of surface area of water that you've got?
No, no, I don't have
Well,
any concerns.
I forgot where you live. Never mind. I
Yeah,
totally
yeah, I'm in
forgot where you
Arizona.
live.
I'm in
Yeah,
Arizona.
I forgot about that.
My biggest problem is the summers.
You probably have to deal
Summers
with it.
are It's
Yeah.
brutal for the fish down here, and some of the plants. The reality why I don't have more variations of plants is because they don't do well in the higher temperatures. The stuff that's managed to stay in my aquariums is the stuff that has made it through the summer, and it just, I figured out, okay, I can keep that plant, which I don't mind. I mean, I think I still have quite a bit of diversity when it comes to some of the plants, but
Yeah. Your
like
tanks look great.
uh but yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I like. It's funny because I always, you hear these like beginner friendly videos, and Java moss and Java ferns are the ones that are always recommended, and they've
Not in
never
my
ever
water.
have. Yeah, I was gonna say, not in my tanks. They never make it. It's the
Yeah.
mosses will do fine this time of the year, where the temperature in the aquariums is about 70, 68 on average most of the winter in here, and it thrives. I mean, it really grows. But the minute the temperatures start getting above 76, it doesn't like it. It starts getting brown. It starts getting real weird. And obviously, my average temperature in my aquariums in the summer in here is anywhere between 88 and 92. And in the aquariums, they're gone. It's all that stuff is all dead. That and the Java fern, immediately once it starts getting above 80, it starts putting out those little seedlings on the leaves, and just trying to save itself, and it never
Yep.
does well.
Yep.
Never does well.
Yeah. Never had real success with Java fern like I have seen other people have. Um, I have a couple of live bearer aquariums where I've added calcium and whatever that sea chem product is that ups the hardness of the water, equilibrium or whatever it is. Where I've added some of that stuff in there to raise the hardness, and I've had some success with those, but I don't know where people get the labels for like easy to grow and hard to grow plants, because I have almost universally found it to be the opposite of what the label says. Um, However, if you can ever get your hands on some Limnophilia sessiliflora, that stuff grows like wildfire. So
Yeah. The only problem is I think that
it's hard
plant
to
is
get.
depending on where you live, it's it's
It's
it's
illegal
it's
everywhere,
restricted.
but there are ways to get it online.
Yeah, under a different name.
Just like anything else. No, actually, to be honest, I thought I was purchasing the legal version, but it ended up being the illegal version. And I'm not going to call anybody
Yeah.
out here on live TV. Um, but like, I don't think they intended it to be. There's very little difference between the version that you can sell legally and the illegal one. And you don't know until it breaches the water and
Um,
flowers. And I had mine super flower. I was like, oh, I know what that is. That looks just like the picture of that stuff.
yeah. Yeah, no.
But that is a genuinely easy to grow plant. But that's the only one that I've found. For me, Ludwigia does really good, and different species. I couldn't tell you exactly which ones do the best right off the top of my head. I'd have to go look at my pieces of tape on my tanks. But I've had some great success with it in cold water outside,
Oh,
and I can't testify to 90-degree Ludwigia,
yeah.
but it does get pretty warm in my outdoor tanks. I mean, I live in Georgia, so we get some 100-degree days. Not anything like you do, but
I think the difference, and this is what I tell people, the problem, I mean, because I lived in northern Nevada in Winnemucca, and it would get 105 during the peak of the heat. But I used to tell them the big difference is by 6 o'clock in the afternoon, we're sitting at about 70 degrees with a light breeze. And the rest of the night you could
yeah,
sleep with your windows open and be fine. Here, the problem is the residual the heat that we get. It just never gets under 100. That's the problem. We have that consistent. As soon as the sun comes up, it's already 90 degrees, and you're going to be cooking the entire time. People think that I'm joking, but we go out here late at night to go for a walk in the summer, and it's still just as hot. The only difference is you don't have the sun burning down on you, but you do have every other surface in the out here is radiating that heat because it's so hot. It's 114 for consistently for I don't know what 16 hours out of the day. It is crazy hot, and so that's why we don't get that cool off. We don't have that big drop off in temperature, so it's just
yeah,
always hot, hot, hot. That's the only reason I come in here and I'll burp the garage in the evenings, just to allow that excess
right,
accumulation of heat. But the reality is, I need to get a little bit better and get a mini split unit in here. I think only thing that's holding me up is I keep hearing it from my wife. It's like, oh, the electric bill is going to go up, and I'm just like, it's expensive. I
yeah,
mean, that's the only thing that really keeps me from making real cozy in here is because it is utilities down here are pretty expensive. I mean, we had one.
I think you guys pay more for power than we
Yeah,
do, if I'm not
one month
mistaken,
I paid like 600
and
bucks,
energy is
and
like,
I was like,
whew,
oh, and that's when I had
yeah,
um at the peak my fish room, and I was doing all sorts of weird stuff in here, and it was like 600 bucks. My wife is like, you got to do something about this because this is a combination though. I thought it was a fish room.
so like I'm an old man. I'm 50 years old, and like I have a kid. So the power bill, like every other old man in America, I go around telling everybody to turn the lights off all the time. You know what I mean? It's the main concern with the logistics of my fish keeping hobby is keeping the damn power bill down,
Mm.
which has led me to a lot of the reasons why I kind of explored the outdoor ponds and really got into the Medaka outdoors because it's free. I can grow all those plants under the sunshine and I don't have to pay for a light to come on. I just barely run any kind of, pumps or filters or anything like that outside. Um, But that's in my indoor fish room. That's like my primary concern. Anytime I set up a tank, anytime that I buy a product of any sort, what filter am I going to get for this new tank? Am I going to get a filter at all? Can I get away with something that's running on 3 watts instead of 6 watts? Because like if all you had were those 4 tanks that I'm looking at right behind you, you can get away with
Yeah.
anything. You can put anything on there. You can put a bunch of giant filters and the best light you can afford, and like it's not going to make that big of a difference. But like you said, once you start air conditioning the room, once you start having 10, 12, 15 tanks where they all have filters that are running 15, 20, 30 watts, man, that's a big power bill, and that's not
Well,
fun.
it didn't help
So
that we had the pool guy forget to put the timer back on the clock for the pumps. So they were
ah,
running 24/7. And that
that'll do it.
that was the it, after finally trying to convince my wife that it wasn't the fish room because she was swore it was the fish room that was consuming all that energy.
Yeah,
And it just happened, you know,
I've had that
the
conversation.
timing of things is weird because I was working nights, so I wasn't at home at night and I wouldn't hear the pumps running. But so the once I got off of that, because I worked like 7 straight days. Once I got off of that, and one of the times where I was getting ready to go to bed and I'm hearing the humming, that distinctive humming. I was like,
Yeah,
what the hell? I went outside and yeah, the pumps had been running all that time. During the day I didn't catch it because it was normal for them to run. But once I was, going to bed at night, I was like, oh, while up there, yeah, he had taken off. They have like little pins on this little analog clock that turns on and off the pumps. Well, he
yeah,
had
yeah.
removed them. He had removed them so that thing was just 24/7 operating. That's really what nailed us. But that's still sometimes there's certain things you just kind of go, all right, whatever. I'm not gonna. I choose not to try to win that battle.
So do
I'll let
you
it go.
keep up with your costs of your fish room?
Not really. I've never really have, but ever since
Do you think it's that significant, or is it just, something
I
that you
just
kinda
found
can
out,
get
and I
away
think
with?
I was able to prove it to my wife. This summer, we decided to retile the whole side of the pool. So this winter, we haven't had water in the pool. We don't have water. We're not running the pumps or any of that stuff. The bills have significantly shown the difference between running the pumps and not running the pumps. And I
I
think
bet.
that's where I
I
told my
bet.
wife, I go, you think that it's my aquariums that is causing all this extra power bill? Here's what it is. And she's like, oh, okay. Now she's a little bit more convinced. But I don't really think she likes the aquariums as much. So that's kind of always been a way to kind of downsize because I was
Well,
really
she
getting
doesn't
out of
like
hand
the
though.
time that you spend on those aquariums is what she doesn't
Well,
like.
yeah, probably.
That's
And
time
and
you could
and
spend
it's
doing
funny
something she
because
wants you to do.
they were at that time, there were more breeding setups and they look totally different. You're setting up,
Yeah.
you're gonna have algae in some of them, and you intentionally want the algae in there because it's gonna trigger some of
Yeah, yeah.
the breeding behavior. So she would come in here and she would understand it. Now that I've really downsized and all these tanks are a little bit more, I guess, quote unquote display tanks, she goes, "Oh, now these look nice," she tells me. And it's like, oh, okay, I get it. Now I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You have your idea of what a nice tank is, and what I was doing before made no sense. But it made sense to me, and I thought they were beautiful tanks because they were for
I mean,
breeding. But
you see so many varying fish rooms online. Like when you watch
yeah,
fish room videos on YouTube, man, I mean, people's interpretation of what they want to sit in for 3 hours, 4 hours a day is wildly different. You've got the guys that it looks like an industrial breeding zone,
yeah,
where everything is just raw wood and like breeding aquariums. And I totally get that, man, because if that's what you're into, seeing those fish put out other fish is really rewarding. But yeah, the tanks look awful as a third person, coming in and just observing it. But at the
yeah,
same time, like I have moved more towards the aesthetic thing too, mainly for the same reason. But
Yeah.
like I don't want to run a studio in my home, where it's like everything is meticulously perfect. Because
Yeah.
the like you talked about, the experimentation of this is a big part of it. I love that. I need to learn something. I need to get my hands in there and fiddle around with stuff and change this and change that and see what happens. And sometimes it just doesn't go the way you want it to, and that's part of the process.
Yeah, there's a comment here about solar panels. Solar
Oh,
panels would work.
yeah.
They would work, but the problem is dealing with the companies that are putting them on is all a scam. And it's a scam in the financial
I
sense.
think that's true.
I think if I could figure out how to set them up myself and understand the electrical side of it, it probably is very cost effective. The problem is all the third parties that are involved with solar panels, and the pricing on solar panels is ridiculous. You basically get a second mortgage on your house if you set up
Yeah.
solar panels because
I know
and
three
the prob-
people that have them, and they all said that they'll die before they pay for themselves.
yeah. Yeah, and the other thing is I don't like because they came in here and asked me when they had the incentives for the solar panels. One, they were never ever very clear as to where the incentives was 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 in the cost. You never saw it. It was always kind of muddled in there. They would say, and the other thing is you never really got a clear, I called it itemized, but as to what labor cost was, installation, panels, they never gave you an itemized bill. And their argument is, well, it's hard to say because prices are always changing. I said, bullshit. You could break it down and tell me. But the reason they never did it, come to find out now from the more that I've looked into this, is that it was a way for them to hide cost and inflate cost. Um, they would absorb a lot of those incentives, and they were reaping the benefits out of that. The other thing I never understood is at the end of the day, even with putting my entire roof with solar panels, I was still going to pay a payment to the power bill in the summer because supposedly our consumption is way too high. So you were they would always promise you that you would have a surplus by the time the summer came down. And I've see the thing with that is it's I still haven't gotten good information. I've talked to some of the neighbors that have had them. Some of them love it and some of them hate it. There's no in between. There's no in between. Some of them feel like they got ripped off because they're still paying um, a lot in power bills when that was supposed to subsidize it. By the time they pay the cost of the installation and the panels and the offset, it's basically they're paying the same bill they were paying before. So there wasn't any savings on some of these guys. And I've got other friends that they say they've never seen a bill yet, as far as from the utility companies. The other thing that I think it's kind of dirty that I didn't like is that they require you to hardwire into the grid. So you can't be a standalone system. And because you're hardwired into the grid, you're still paying the power company, even if you have a surplus and they're benefiting from your surplus, you're still having to pay, and it's a minimal, it's a minimal amount. But I just thought the principle of it is what I didn't like, and it's like 40 or $50 a month that you have to pay regardless, just because you're connected to the grid. And their whole argument was if you have a power outage or whatever, that they would be able to supply power to your house. But I was like, well, if I install my own battery packs,
So they can
why do I
come
need
cut
you?
the power off to your house is what they're gonna do. They're not gonna supply you anything that you need. That's crazy talk right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. And then the whole argument that the sales guys would is like, well, power's going to get more expensive. So that's why more houses are setting up solar panels, and you don't want to miss out on that. And I told one of the guys, I said, look, what you're telling me doesn't make any sense. And here's the reason why. Everything works on supply and demand. You're telling me right now that all these houses around the neighborhood are putting up solar panels. So all of a sudden there's going to be a surplus on a good, and the demand's going to be less on the grid.
Yeah, that
How in the
power company's
world
gonna
would
be really needing to get rid of some wattage there.
And I told him that makes no sense. Which your argument to convince me to put panels on my house, you need to rethink it. Um, you know, if you were to tell me, and this is exactly what's probably going to happen, is they're going to any excess power, the power companies are going to sell it to somebody else. So there's never going to be
Yeah.
enough for whatever's around, and that'll be their justification for upping the prices. But I told them
It's
your
just like
sales pitch is
gasoline.
it's got a hole in it, man. You can't tell me that there's an increase in supply and so therefore there's going to be an increase in the demand. So
Everybody else is doing it. Come on, man. You
yeah.
got to do it too. Yeah, I seriously looked into that for my home, I guess 2 or 3 years ago, and I found basically the same thing that you did. I didn't get as far into it as talking to an installer, but when I was just doing the math on it, I was like, man, I'm actually paying more for the next 25 years than I would be if I'm just paying my power bill. That doesn't make economical sense. I sure do want it though. I like the idea. And from a fish keeper standpoint, I tell you what does work good are those little bitty pumps with the solar panels. I use several of them outside.
Yeah.
It's not going to do much for your wife bitching about the power bill, but it does help a little bit with Madoka pines and such.
Well, and going down that rabbit hole, they have a mini split that is a hybrid, and
Oh
what
yeah,
it does, yeah, and it's I forget what I used to know the name. It's not that expensive either, but during the day you run it off of panels, and it's got all the panels you need to be able to run
like it
the
has its
unit.
own panels.
Hmm. And then
Now, see
when the
that
light,
that I would be into. If you don't have to put together some concocted Frankenstein machine on the roof of your house to make it work, if it's all like a included kit, that's the way to go.
yeah, this one is you still have to purchase your own panels, I guess, but they're a lot cheaper. I've been looking on marketplace, and a lot of these houses that initially got into the whole solar panel thing, I remember they quoted me like $280 per panel. I'm
Whew.
looking at those same panels for like $20 on
Yeah,
marketplace.
they've
And these
gotten a
are
lot cheaper.
these are all tear downs from houses that got sold, and I guess whatever reason the new owners um
Didn't want them.
decided that they weren't gonna deal with the solar panels. So there's a big surplus of all these panels that still work. You're getting them for like $20. I saw
Dang.
a pallet that had, I don't know, like 50 panels on it or something like that for like $100. And I was like, I've even contemplated buying some of that stuff. If I could figure out how to wire it, shit, I'll
Yeah.
install it myself. And for a fraction
How
of the cost.
there's a YouTube video on it.
Yeah. Yeah,
There's
I think
some
where the cost would be on that, it's not even the panels. I think it's the little, what do they call them?
the inverter.
It's like a transition or so. It's the electronics that'll basically take DC and convert it to AC. Yeah,
Yep.
transistors. They're not transistors. It's going to
I
drive
think
me
it's an
nuts because I know.
inverter.
Yeah, inverters. And but those are the ones that's where the cost is, because
Yeah.
depending on the quality that you buy is going to be the efficiency of those panels. But
Yeah, you
going back
get
to
one of those cheap ones that fails, you'll burn your house down as well. So you got to be,
uh
if
so
you do spend money on something, that'd be the thing to do it.
okay, just to really pay the price on. Oh, going back to that mini split, what I liked about it is that during Sunday, during sunlight, it automatic. You don't have to manually switch it; it's an automatic switch, so it'll run on solar power. Once the light goes out, it goes on to your house electricity, because it does have the dual system in there. But here's the whole thing, and this is what I tell my wife. I go, she thinks that I'm gonna try to run the garage as cool as I run the house, or as cool as we run the
Right.
house, right?
Yeah, you only need to get it down to like 85 maybe.
Exactly. That's what I tell her. It's gonna be warm in there if you go in there compared to the house. I said, because I need to get it. If I can get it down to 85 degrees, 80 degrees, your tanks are usually about 2 to 3 degrees cooler, anyways. I said they're gonna do fine. I just won't want to be having to run in the house because I do live streams throughout the year, and in the summer it sucks being in here because it's hot. So I go indoors
I
and I'm
bet,
sitting in.
I bet it
There's
does.
videos.
Yeah.
There's videos of me where I'm sitting either in my one of the spare bedrooms or in the kitchen, and and I hate running out of my fish room because then I don't have anything in the background,
Yeah.
and I'm talking about fish. I've
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
felt like you got to have something. But I got a friend of mine here that's crucifying me because he wants to talk about the video you did about lighting. I guess he
Oh
wants you
yeah.
to talk a little bit about that. I guess I must have missed that video. He's put like 5, 6 different comments. Ask him about the lighting. So what's this
What
lighting
do you
whole
want to know
situation?
specifically?
Let's
Oh,
see.
I mean,
All
I
right.
could talk about lighting all day. Does he have a specific question about it?
Let me see. Let me go back and read the very first one because he put up a bunch of them. That's in my tanks. I'm gonna put them on blast. He said, Mexicali, get this man yapping about lighting. I'm a fanboy who loves his lighting videos. Can a hero light power my house by shining it at solar panels? That's just all right, Nick. What did you want to know about lighting? Now's your time to shine. Um, literally. But yeah, he was spamming me there for a second. I don't know if he's messing
Yeah,
around with me
I
or
can talk a lot about lighting. I have a lot of different opinions that continually evolve. There's a bunch of different ways to go about it. The thing I can say at this point, from my experience, because I have experimented with, I think, every viable source of light that is available to us on the market right now. I've got tanks with natural sunlight. I have had tanks with the Amazon floodlights. I have used strip lights, LED like work lights. Um, I've had the cheap LED aquarium lights. I have had the expensive aquarium lights. And what I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, and the F Zone people are not gonna like this, but the Chihiros B series light is the best light that you can possibly buy, as far as price and performance goes. There are probably better lights out there. I'm not saying it's the absolute best, but for the amount of cash you have to invest in an aquarium light, that Chihiros B series is hands down the best light I have ever used. And the tank that I have one on right now is thriving beyond anything else that's next to it, running with all the same stuff except for different lights. Now the F Zone lights are really good, but my biggest complaint about most of the mid-grade lights is that you have to adjust the amount of WRGB, the white, red, green, and blue lights. Um, I don't have any knowledge of what in the world I need to adjust these lights to. I'm not a plant. I can't see what the plants are seeing. Like, I have no idea through all the years of growing plants that I've ever had. I don't know how to adjust those lights. So where you put those sliders of which amount of light, I don't really want to mess with that. I want the company to decide that for me. So the Chihiros, you can't adjust the individual colors. It's just brightness. And that is a big advantage. Any of the lights where you have to decide how much red, blue, and green is in there, that's going to have a lower level of performance in my experience, because we're not scientists. You might just hit it right. Like, you might just luck up and get those adjustments just right. But in my experience, the ones where it's brightness, that's your only adjustment, actually end up being the better performing lights. And the Chihiros is at the top of the line there. Two other things I'll say about lights that I've found to be very important. Anything that's not designed for growing plants is not going to do as good of a job at growing plants. All of the 7,000K, 6,500K floodlights that you can get on eBay or Amazon. Those are going to cost you more to run, and they are going to grow your plants at a slower rate. They're going to grow more algae, and your whole ecosystem is going to suffer. They do work, but they don't work nearly as good for the amount of energy that you're putting into that light. So I think somebody just did a live stream about, I believe it was the Primetime Aquatics folks, talking about it's a bad idea to try to save money on aquariums. And in this respect, it's a deceiving fact, because in the end, you will spend more money powering those LED floodlights than you would just investing in a decent aquarium light right off the bat. You'll end up putting more energy into that light to get the same effect. So I have completely abandoned the LED floodlights, except for one tank that I have that I'm going to continue to use, a very small one, because just logistically, I don't have another choice right now. But as soon as I find something that will fit it, I'll change it over. But what's been very surprising, and I'm sorry if I'm just rambling on about this.
No.
What's been really surprising is my ability to use regular, what are, and I say this in my videos, it's a taboo, but ultimately what are cannabis grow lights that you might get on Amazon or eBay. The technology in that field has gone so fast and so far that there's so many options with those lights, adjustability, spectrum changes, that I have had great success with the two kind of commercial grow lights that I use in my fish room. But if you just have one aquarium and you want to save some money, the thing I can tell you to get is a 10-watt Sans-C grow bulb and just a regular old light socket with a switch that you can plug in the wall from Home Depot. That setup with that 10-watt Sans-C bulb, which is get their wide dispersion version and get a little bit of a hood on it, that is the cheapest, most cost-effective, efficient way to really grow very good plants in an aquarium. If you're wanting to save money, I would say go that direction. And what you need to do is just be able to adjust the height of that light over the water. That's all you really need. And you'll find a sweet spot where it is growing the plants really well, but it's not producing algae. The cooler the bulb, I would say, as far as grow lights go, the better. But they're never going to be as cool as like a floodlight or something like that, as far as the spectrum goes on a grow light. So I have several different ones. I've had success with all of the spectrums. I see that question. And it's hard to pin that down from in my tanks. Like what spectrum is best? That almost goes back to what I was saying with the Chihiros, which is if you'll let the company of experts decide the color of your light and the spectrum that it's delivering to the plants, I think that's the best way to do it, as opposed to being able to adjust it yourself. Because I think you can just get it out of whack and ends up just growing algae.
Yeah, I know. I've heard several friends that I have that are aquascapers. They like buying, and that brand always comes up, Shihiros, because they've already engineered the spread of the light. So these lights are pretty much set up for the dimensions of the aquariums that they use for competitions. So the only thing you're going to mess with is, like, again, the height, how high or how low you're going to put the light to grow whatever it is you're growing. But as far as being able to get the right light spread, the light spectrum, they don't even, and these guys do this for competition. So they just go with, straight out of the box. The only thing they're concerned is whether it's a 2-foot tank or a 4-foot tank, and then they know it's one light or two lights that they're going to be using for their setups. But that's kind of
I
been
would
the
like to
argument
try some of the other brands. Twin Star, I think, has a good brand. They have some good products out there if anybody's had experience with those. And To me, the Fluval stuff is a little overpriced. I don't know what you feel about that company. Um,
I don't buy aquarium lights. I don't.
you don't have
I'm
any?
cheap. I don't have any. Oh well, that's not true. I have
So what are you using?
shop lights. That's all I use is just shop lights from Walmart. When they
The
used to
30
be
watt
12
ones?
bucks.
Yeah,
I guess
yeah.
I don't know. It's the only feature that is kind of cool is that I can link them in. They can plug one into the other one. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And the other light that isn't like a shop light is this one back here, and you can see the red off of it because it's a grow light.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
I got that one because the size fit under the structure. But it's one of those how I don't know if it's a house plant grow light,
Yeah.
but but that's all it is, and it actually does a pretty good job of growing the stuff that's in
Yeah,
there. I
that's a
mean,
great looking tank.
so it's one of those. It's a 20 long with that I took the rim off of it, but it just worked out good, and I
Yeah.
guess the height that I put it just happened to be the right height. I do
That
have
I
a
was
little
about
bit.
to say that, man. Like you got lucky with that, and that was the perfect height. Like ideally, you'd want to be able to adjust that to any degree, but like, you don't have to, so who cares? It looks great the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that one, I just again, it was just dumb luck. A lot of the stuff that I
And
do is dumb
it
luck.
looks like you got some floating plants in
Yeah,
there.
it's got some uh the water lettuce or the dwarf water lettuce in there. And that's the only floating plant. I do have a little bit of duckweed, but I try to get it out as much as possible.
Yeah, that
But
damn
that's pretty
duckweed.
much it. I got one of those palms in there, and I do have some carnosa, which I didn't know that stuff would grow in water, but it's loving it. Um, and
Well, I
then
think like those tanks that are partially shaded like that, where you've got some floating plants and you got some overhanging terrestrial plants in there. That to me, just like we were talking about before with the undergravel filters, those are the tanks of mine where I've noticed, hey man, that one is like always more healthy. When I have that element of shade over parts of the tank, and I'm using a grow light, it's much less sensitive. Um, to bad things getting
what
started
I
if you have a
what
little bit
I
of overhang.
what I've come to really enjoy about this tank is that it gives the fish a place to hide,
Yeah,
and it's almost, I guess, what would be an embankment of a waterway where if they feel uncomfortable, they'll just start and hide in there, and the rest of the time they're just kind of they'll come out. I always forget how many fish are in there because I don't see them all the time until I start feeding, and then all of a
yeah,
sudden they come out of the woodworks. All I have in there are some least killifish, and I had a group of 8 um, white clouds, but now they're down to 5. I've lost 3 of them. Just I got
yeah.
them at.
They probably struggle with the heat in your room because those
Um,
those I have a lot of those that love the cold water.
yeah, yeah. I don't think they've experienced the heat yet. They're getting.
Ah,
They got a couple of months where before we
before it
start.
gets really warm.
Yeah, yeah. Once we start getting into May, June, definitely, we start picking up. But even
Yeah,
even
the
June,
white clouds are great little fish. I've had a lot of success with them.
yeah, and I've the reason I've been kind of playing with these guys because I want to eventually, right off immediately to the side of this garage. There's a place out there in the side yard that I want to set up like a little sitting area. And one of the features that I want to put in there are some of these nice ceramic pots with fish. And I always thought about white clouds, but now that with the advent of rice fish, maybe it'll be rice fish. One thing that I don't know
How
if
cold does it get? Like, what's your average low in the winter? Because you
about
might could get some of those daisies rice fish might even survive in your area.
yeah, we don't get very
I couldn't
cold.
get them.
I think we dip maybe for the coldest we get here. It's probably about 38 degrees,
Oh,
but it's
wow.
only a couple hours. It's only a couple hours. It'll be right around 5 o'clock to about 6 in the morning. Right before the sun comes up is where the temperature really drops, but it's for a very short time. and then once the sun comes out, we're usually mid 50s, high 60s, the average temperature for our winters. So it's not very cold. We don't freeze.
Yeah,
We don't
you
ever
have
ever
some
freeze.
thriving. Just regular old rice fish should do great for you, but you may even be able to get away with some of those. I don't know. Those tropical varieties, I don't know as much about. I didn't have as much success with the
Yeah,
daisies, the Indian varieties. They didn't even like my fish room, to be honest, because
it got
it
cold.
stays about 68. Yeah, it's about 68, and I only run heaters in 2 of my tanks that I have fish that, you know, I'm a cheap ass, so I had to really get some fish that I thought were well worth it to run those heaters. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah, they
55
didn't
was the
do good for
coldest.
me, but
Yeah, it's he's up
yeah,
in LA, so we get it's very. I mean, today is supposed to be kind of cooler, one of the cooler winters. Our temperature, we although this summer I have to admit has been a little bit warmer. I mean, this winter has not been as cold, um, for the most part, but because we've been staying, high 60s, low 70s during the day, and at night we dip in maybe to like the lower 50s. That's about it. We might get a little bit of over the weekend, a bit of a cold snap, but it's not going to be anything brutal. The advantage is if I set up ponds outside and I use some of the no, what is it called, the greenhouse panels. Oh,
yeah, the
the
polycarbonate panels.
yeah, the polycarbonates as lids, they'll be fine because they'll trap all that heat during the day, and at night they'll be okay. They're gonna be fine. But that's why I was kind of playing around with those white clouds. They don't like the heat. I've kept them over in different tanks, and they're the ones that usually will not make it during the summer, if they're not healthy. If they
Yeah,
have any sort of health issues, they're the first ones to go. But
yeah,
but
they
I
don't
had
like the
I
warm water in my experience.
yeah,
But
but
boy, they're easy to breed. If you'll just take those things out of that tank, if you pulled all those fish out of there right now, you'd have about 100 little babies just cropping up. I could almost guarantee you they love that type of,
well, and that was kind
thick
of the
planted.
idea. I wanted to, if they bred, I wanted like accidental breeding, and what I call
Yeah,
accidental is that I'm not intentionally trying to breed them. And I do see them right now. They're doing their breeding behavior. I have some Sirwasitang under some branches let me see. Let me get my phone. See if I can connect my phone.
yeah,
I'll
they
show you.
love getting in there and doing their little twists and turns in that thick vegetation.
So I know they are breeding. It's just a matter of I can if the fry. I hate having to pull because I'm not
Well,
intentionally trying to breed.
if you'll just pull all the fish out, you'll
Yeah,
get a
that's the
bunch,
problem.
and then you can scoop
I
them out. But it's a problem getting them out.
Yeah, I don't think I would be able to get them all out. That's the all right. Let me
Yeah, and
see.
I've about abandoned all of my breeding endeavors at this point. It's a lot of fun, but every time I really start getting interested in it, I end up with so many fish I don't know what to do with them.
I'm not gonna mess with this. Forget it. Oh no, wait. Did it connect? Oh, it did. Let me see. Maybe I will be able to add it. Let me. Oh, because I wanted to show you. I took a little bit of inspiration from your channel too. So I set up a little pond. Here we go. Let me add this. Yep, it's working.
There we go.
Oh wait. So this one here is
Oh yeah, look at that.
this is directly from watching your videos. Um,
Yeah, that's awesome.
same content. I mean, same
Same tub from Home Depot and the wraparound on it. This is strictly from watching you. The one you have, the little Zen pond.
Yeah, yours looks fantastic, man. Yours looks better than mine.
And then I don't know about that, but yeah, here's where I was telling you. There's this root. I made a branch with some roots under it, and I got this orangutan in there, and that's where they
Yeah,
like to dance. They like to get in there and dance around in there and try to breed all the time. But
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, if
there's a
you could
bunch of
somehow
little.
scoop all those guys out in one shot, man, you'd have a ton of little babies crop up in there. Every time I've moved those mountain minnows out of a tank, I've just been like, oh my God, now I've got another 100 fish. What am I going to do?
Let me get rid of these. No, that's not what I want.
Let me get out of here. Okay. Yeah, no, but that's that little pond is kind of my
Yeah, it looks
pride and
great.
joy because it's I saw the one you had and I started getting real nosy and going back and looking. I go, that looks like the little cement mixture that they sell at the big box store. And I was
Yep.
like, all right, I'm gonna replicate what he did. But yours is cool because it's got a water feature in it. And I actually have the pump and everything, but I ended up getting impatient. Instead of gluing all the
Yeah.
rocks together to make I just set it up and threw it together.
Well,
I said, I'm gonna do something
the
different.
my like Japanese biotope one that I did was about probably the fifth one of those that I had put together. And like I had done the same thing where I was like, "Ooh, I saw it was I saw some Japanese folks do it, and I couldn't understand what they were saying about it, but I recognized that product, and I was like, yeah, I know where to get something like that." And when I got into doing it, I got in a hurry too. I was like, "Oh, I just want to use this and use that because it's so much fun to make those. It's so easy, and they're so successful." That like I went a little overboard and made a bunch of them, but then I whittled it down to really only have the one at this point. But for your next one, man, Tractor Supply, it's the place to get
Okay.
the tub. It's
Oh, they have a
bigger.
bigger one?
They have a bigger one, and so the Home Depot ones are great. I love those. But if you get that bigger one, you can do a little bit more with the like soil out of the water type thing, and still have enough swim room to have a little group of fish in there. That's what I was kind of shooting for. But
There
yours looks fantastic.
there used to be a channel, and I say used to be because he kind of quit doing videos. And it's Michael's Fish Room. He did a lot of stuff with guppies, but he had set up an outdoor pond that I want to replicate. And what he did was basically made three sections that were like drop downs.
Oh,
And
that's cool.
I looked at that and I was like, oh, I can make it. But his was real rudimentary. It wasn't very, it's just kind of like totes. And then he had just drilled like a PVC pipe with mesh on one side and let that cascade into the other one and to the other
Right,
one.
right.
So it's like a step down. And then at the bottom one, he had a return pump.
Was he
And
pumping
then he
it
would
back? Yeah.
yeah, he was cranking it back up. So it was like a little water feature, but his was like real rudimentary. It wasn't anything very, and I'm thinking, oh, I could probably do something very similar to that, make it look a little bit nicer, where each section has um its own scape. And then I came across Adrian's Fish Room, and he bought a
Yeah.
tank that was already built like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is exactly what I was thinking about, where it would fall into the, it's a big old, I think it's like a 6-foot tank that he has that's got three different compartments and it cascades one into the other one. So I was like, oh, I know I can
And
do
then he's
something.
got the sump on the bottom, which like that's a thing I've always wanted to explore. Eventually I will, where I have a whole rack that's going into each other and down into a sump. But I think I fantasize about that, but I think the noise would be a little too much for indoors. But yeah, Adrian's tank is really cool. I'm sure you could do something really neat with that. Are you going to try to put guppies in it?
I don't know. I think if I do anything outdoors, I like to be able to have the rice fish because it would do fine. I don't have to worry
Yeah.
about bringing them in or out or any of that stuff. Even in the high heat, I find they do pretty well. It won't be direct sunlight. I am going to try to put some sort of shading on the side patio. My
Yeah.
wife has said, set it up, make it like your little man. It's not a cave, but it's just because she knows that one of my things is that I enjoy smoking cigars, and I'm always either having to come out here to the garage and smoke them here, but there's times where in the spring and the fall for us, it's beautiful outside. So she
Yeah.
goes, you could set that side up, make it nice. You can live stream for there. You can smoke your cigars there. You can do whatever it is you like to do. And she goes, and you have your own little private sitting area. And so I was like, all right, I'm definitely taking her up on that. And I've been looking at doing the shading, and it's going to be real simple. I've figured out how I can do it with sails. Just
Yeah.
do the shading with sails.
Yeah.
We don't. There's only a couple of times out of the year where we get a lot of wind, but that's they'll tolerate that, or I can make it so that I can remove the shading, and rain. It's hit or miss. Although these
You don't
last
get as
couple of
much
years,
wind as you did up there north of Vegas.
no, no.
I did a
up in
lot of
Winnemucca,
racing. I did a lot of racing when I lived out west, and yeah, I raced up there at that track up on the north side of Las Vegas where the airport is many times.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah, it gets windy up there.
all of those places, all of those, those high deserts, man, it's a windy environment that people don't realize.
Yeah, the only reason I guess the temperature's even dropping this weekend is because we're supposed to have some wind, but it's very predictable the time of the years that we get the wind stuff.
Yeah.
It's not constant where every day it's windy. That's why a lot of people use a lot of the sail shading out here. It's inexpensive, lightweight, and we don't have a lot of wear and tear. What the worst thing that beats stuff out here is the sun, because that's almost 365 days out of the year. It beats down on stuff. I mean, we go through umbrellas, those patio umbrellas where most people can have them for about 5 years or so. Ours, if we get 2 years out of them, we're lucky before the material gets all fried out and just falls apart. That's really what happens to it.
Yeah, it's a different thing out there in the desert, man.
I like it though. I mean,
it is beautiful.
The one thing I never thought I was going to miss was being able to look at a distance and look at the mountains. I spent some time in Georgia for the military, and I didn't realize you can't look very far.
Yeah,
talk about
trees everywhere.
Trying to do lab nav in Georgia was something totally new to me.
It's different
because everywhere you look, it's trees.
Mm-hmm.
I tell my wife, because she's never been to the East Coast, and I told her, we're going to do some driving down there. I go, be prepared to feel claustrophobic. And she goes, what do you mean?
Yeah.
I said, the only places that you have clearings out there in some of these places is where they cut the road, but you'll be able to look maybe 10 feet off the sides, and then you're going to look and it's going to be nothing but dense woods, and you won't be able to see anything in any direction other than the cutout for the road. I said, that's it. It is dense. It feels dark all the time. And she's just okay. She can wrap her head around that. So
it's a different world. Now, where I live up here in the northern part, I've got a lot of mountains, so it's not quite as bad. But it's a very dense forest everywhere in this area. It's shocking in comparison.
Tubs under umbrellas, it might work. Yeah, no, that's what I plan to do out here is setting up a little sitting area, and then obviously set up some outdoor ponds, and I'll have some shading, and but that's something that's another project that I just kind of waiting for me to be able to do it. The only problem with projects is they always end up costing more money than what you budget for them.
I know that's right. There's a lot of overlap with setting up those ponds I've found outside. We were talking about lighting earlier. The same situation crops up when we're setting up these ponds as far as how much light do you want to let in there. Sometimes you just set it up and you just get what you get. But if you can do any kind of shading, shade cloth or the sail or the umbrellas or any of those things, and adjust that amount of light that's getting into that pond for anybody that's thinking about doing this, that is a huge aspect of keeping them clear and running very healthy, is not getting too much sun in there.
Yeah, and that's the thing though that people don't understand, that just ambient light, it's much brighter than any lamp that you'll
Oh yeah.
ever have. That's why people that set up aquariums across a window and they're
Yeah.
constantly fighting algae, even though they don't have a light on the aquarium, is because you're getting that ambient light, and that ambient light is so bright that it'll cause algae issues.
And
But
plus in
yeah,
the
no,
summer, if you're by a window, that's 12 hours of light, man. I have
yeah.
no aquarium that has a light running 12 hours. That would just be a recipe for disaster in my room.
Yeah, that's the other thing that I've kind of learned with lighting is I run a lot less amount of light, time of light than what most people seem to think it's necessary.
I do
Um,
too.
I have mine set up on 4-hour timers. And that's
Yeah.
it. That's they only get 4 hours, 4 hours in the morning. They come on at 6, they're off by 10. Right now they're on because I'm live streaming. I went and turn on the timer, keep it on. Uh, but they're only on 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the evening, unless I'm in here and then I go manually turn them on. But yeah, it's just one of those things where I've found that the less amount of light, the better success I've had with especially the aquatic plants and algae, not having to fight
Well,
algae so much.
if you think about it scientifically, and I'm no scientist, I'm just an idiot that plays the guitar. But if you think about what the science books say, light is like food, right? And with these plants, you kind of want to keep them lean and mean for the most part. You only want to give them enough light to just kind of get the job done. Um, having said that, with one of the recent tanks I set up that does not use a light in my fish room, I don't know if any of you folks, I don't know if you, Jorge, or anybody else has watched any of these last couple of undergravel filter videos I made, but there's a tank, a 20 long, that doesn't have its own dedicated light. It's just under a grow light with many other plants and other tanks right there. Since it doesn't get as intense of light, the same plants as I have in the tank right next to it that does have its own light have developed bigger leaves, which is exactly what will happen with your house plants. If you don't give them as much light, the leaves tend to get a little bigger, so they absorb more light. And you can actually adjust how these plants are, the size of your actual plants, by the amount of light that you're giving them. I've noticed this with rotalas. If you really pound them with high levels of light, they will grow very, very tiny leaves, and they will almost be stunted in their vertical growth. Whereas if you give them a almost ambient amount of light, then some of those rotalas actually will grow more naturally and grow bigger and be much healthier than what some of the rhetoric online leads you. That tank, yeah, that's the tank right there. It's much fuller now. But the leaves on all of those plants have developed bigger than the ones on the tanks right next to it. And it's really interesting to see. It's given me a lot of cool ideas as far as like, well, I could turn a Ludwigia plant into a much bigger feature in a tank if I just don't give it as intense of light.
And that's because they're trying to find the light. Do you think that's why it's doing that?
Well, I mean, if you have any plant outside and you put, like, say you have a maple tree and you put it in full sun and then you put another one in full shade, the plant in full shade will grow bigger sized leaves to absorb
Mm.
more sun because they don't have to deal with the UV damage. They can grow a more fragile and more absorbent leaf than the one that has to kind of be protected from the sun's harshness. So I think the same thing is happening here with this tank. The one down in the bottom to the left there is literally the exact same plants in the exact same size tank, running basically everything the same, but it has a pop bloom light on it, which is very bright. And the controller broke, so I can't adjust it. So I'm just kind of stuck with what I've got. And all of the leaves in that brighter tank are smaller, and the plants are a little tougher. Whereas the ones in this aquarium we're looking at right now, it's like a bigger, lusher, more relaxed, kind of softer plant, which is exactly what you would see if you're doing the same thing outdoors with any type of commercial plant or house plant.
So let me ask you this: now that I'm looking at your fish room, what came first, the love for houseplants or the aquariums, or they were both at the same time?
Bonsai.
Bonsai.
So like, yeah, I'm a child of the 80s. I was born in the 70s. So like I grew up with Karate Kid, right? Yeah. And around that same time, I found a book in the library at my elementary school, and it was one of those sunset educational books. And they used to make books about like skateboarding or cooking or building a deck. Like Sunset would make all these cool little short educational books. And I remember going to the library at school and renting that bonsai book, checking it out over and over and over and over again. And that got me into plants because I was just amazed by these tiny little worlds that these folks were creating in these pots. And that just spiraled into me liking houseplants. And like my family were gardeners and things like that. So I was always around, growing tomatoes and peppers and stuff like that. But yeah, my fish room is like it's just a mix of my bonsai and my houseplants and my aquariums, which to me, the aquarium is just another pot to put plants in. There's plants I can't grow outside of the water that I can grow in the water. And the fish aspect is just it's just an added coolness. They're just like my little buddies that, I try to take as best of care of them as I can because they're cool. But like, I'm not as excited about the fish.
With the bonsai, can you also do that to like, let's say the monstera that's back there behind you, or can you technically do that with those plants, or that's not something you can do bonsai on?
Well, yes, you can bonsai anything, and technically I could bonsai that monstera that's back there. It's just in general with that particular plant, we grow it for a big leaf. That's what becomes showy with the monstera is the really big dinner plate size perforated leaves. So that kind of runs in contrary to the philosophy of bonsai, which is miniaturizing something.
Yeah, I was thinking because
like
for aquariums, you know how because those monsteras can get humongous, but
yes,
if you could replicate it to keep it inside of an aquarium, that would be kind of cool. I've seen some people try it, but eventually they end up having to pull the monstera out of there because it just gets gigantic. I mean, it's going to get so huge.
To me, and again, I'm just some dude, but to me, the answer to that is actually treating that monstera like a bonsai as far as from, let's euphemistically say, from the waist down. On a bonsai, we really want the top of the plant to look a certain way. Whereas with a monstera in a fish tank, I don't give a damn what it looks like. I just want it to get big and go by the window and pull a bunch of stuff out of the water. However, from the waist down, I'm going to treat that just like a bonsai. Whereas as soon as those roots grow out to a point, like we talked about earlier, if they start dangling around and messing around, flirting with the substrate, well, I'm just going to cut those guys back in the same way I would a bonsai tree. And it's going to rejuvenate that plant in the same manner. And I have several of those that I have now had in tanks for 6 years, the same monstera. And the root system is no bigger than like not even a 2-liter Coca-Cola. Like it's a compact root system because I cut it back all the time. Now, if I went out of town for 2 months, we'd be in trouble because that plant would start looking for nutrients and digging down into the soil. and it would wreck the tank pretty quickly. But as long as I'm in there, once every month or so, kind of trimming those roots back, it essentially is a bonsai again from the stem down.
Yeah. Well, shit, we're almost coming up on 2 hours. I don't know. I know you. I know you're kind of got a little bit of time, but I'm also still got to start getting ready for work. Go make lunch and then go to work.
Yeah.
But
whenever you're ready to sign off, man.
Yeah, we'll go probably another 5 more minutes and then we'll call it. But
sure.
No, I just wanted to say, again, reiterate, thank you for accepting. One of the things that I've been finding so fascinating is this channel in particular, because you've had previous channels, right, on YouTube?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. This channel,
I had a channel.
Go ahead.
Oh, I used to talk about motorcycles because I worked in that industry, and so Harley paid me to talk about those. And then I had a shooting channel about firearms, not about Second Amendment rights, ironically enough. But I just used to shoot for sport. Like that was just something that I always did. I shot sporting clays and I shot in like some handgun competitions. So I had a YouTube channel talking about firearms for a while until it got too weird. With the laws, and then I play music for a living. That's what I do for my livelihood. So I have a very, very unsuccessful music channel on YouTube. That somehow,
I think you're really downplaying that, but okay.
Well, ironically enough, like I cannot connect to anybody musically digitally. It's not how that medium is meant to be done. Like I cannot reconcile that. I'm too old school. I come from like I traveled around and learned the blues from the old dudes before they all died. I just rolled up to people's houses and said, "Hey, can I play with you for a few minutes?" And so like I come from that old school thing. So like making music videos, I love it, but I've never been very good at it. Whereas with some of these other topics, like motorcycling, how do you share that with people in real life? Like I can't put all y'all on the back of my bike and take you up on the mountain and show you what's fun. So the video medium is great for that. And likewise with fish tanks, like it's almost perfect. Getting on YouTube and allowing all of us to like share our homes the way that we do is fantastic, especially in this day and age, because there's so little community in my actual community that it's like really nice to be able to share this stuff online and have so many people kind of be involved in it. Because you can't invite me to your home. You live 3,000 miles away from me. But man, you can invite me into your fish room, once a week, and it becomes like we're friends. So it's been really cool.
Yeah. It's funny because you're the second person that I know of that does guitars. Have you ever seen Donovan's Tanks or Aquariums? Do you know of his channel?
I recognize that name. I do. I'm not super familiar with it. Is he a musician?
He also had a very successful music channel, because I remember watching his videos of his fish room, and he had a silver plaque on the back, and I was like, a silver button, and you had a brand new channel, and I was like, oh, okay. But his presence, just like yours, is of somebody that is used fairly comfortable in front of the camera. So I knew that wasn't his fish channel was not his first channel. You could tell it's somebody that's gotten accustomed to talking to the camera and being able to provide information. So I think I've chatted back and forth with him a couple of times. So it was really interesting when I asked him. I said, "Hey, you mind me asking?" Because he shows it in his video. I said, "That's probably a fair question to ask." I said, "What's the silver button for?" And he goes, "Oh, I have a music channel where he plays. He does guitar, something with guitars, I think." So
that's cool. I'll have to check his stuff out.
So you're the second hobbyist that keeps aquariums and is in the music industry one way or another.
Yeah. I mean, I had a good career for a long time touring and stuff like that. I bought this house playing the guitar, but today these days mostly I just teach. I teach all week. I play on the weekends, maybe twice a month. But yeah, I used to tour all over the country and do stuff. I play blues music and a little bit of jazz, but mainly North Mississippi blues. But yeah, it's a little harder these days to make a living as a musician. So the YouTube has been great for that as well. There's a lot of people that have been able to, find some secondary success on YouTube. I haven't quite figured that one out yet, but we'll see what goes on.
Yeah. For the people, if they wanted to reach out to you, what social media platforms can they find you on?
So I do have an Instagram of Sweet Jonnhy's Plants, as I think
Okay.
what my Instagram is, but I intend to change that name to Sweet Jonnhy's Ponds and Aquariums to match my YouTube. But right now, that's really the only place that you can find me in this capacity. You can find my website at johnsosby.com if you want to find my music and stuff like that. Juke House Jonnhy is my performance name. You can type that in and hear some of my music on YouTube. Again, I put very little effort into that YouTube channel. I apologize to the world. I should have been more proactive, bringing hill country blues to the people. But I focus mostly on doing it in real life as opposed to online. And I think
I know. In my tanks, he's also a former. I don't know if you want to call him former musician, but he had a group of friends that they would. I guess they recorded some stuff and he I don't know if he produces music still, but he does a lot more. He's more into those art medias. He does a lot of photography, a lot of editing and stuff like that too. So but yeah, it's really interesting. Once you start digging into some of these people's channels and their backgrounds, you find out that it's like, oh, not only is the fish stuff interesting, but they do so much more that's
yeah,
way more
everybody,
interesting.
has got lots to them, man. And I know you do too. I've watched a bunch of your videos. I've watched you drive around town to Home Depot and buy plants and stuff. And it's like I said, man, it's so fun to be a part of this community. It's very shocking because I'm not I'm not that millennial generation where like I grew up online. It's always seemed a little weird, but I've literally made a living as a performer my whole life. So I think it gives me that little extra.
He said they were a rapping boy band.
Hey man, if I could have got somebody to do that with me, I would have been too. I was a massive
it's really
Michael
cool.
Jackson fan.
It's really cool to find out, those that other side you don't normally get to see when you're watching the fish videos. We've had some people that are really into motorsports, whether it's cars, motorcycles. There's one guy, TJ Autocross, the very first guy I did an interview. I think we spent about 80% of that conversation was just talking about cars, and I think at the very end we touched on fish. But he does.
There's a real like biological overlap of motorcycles, guitars, something to do with fish tanks, and like everybody, all those folks will have one other thing, but all those things are kind of swirled together into this same mix that I think a lot of us enjoy. To some degree or another. It is fascinating when I meet people, and I mean, to me it's fascinating to talk to you and to watch your videos because we literally have had the same experience with like 1,000 tanks.
Yep.
But anyway, I know it's about time to hop off here, man. I don't want to keep you any longer than
no. Just before, one thing I wanted to ask you: do you attend any of the expos or events that happen in your area?
No, I have in the past, like several years ago, but not since I started a YouTube channel. But I would love to do that in the future. I intend to be more a part of that community because it is lacking here in my physical area. Like we only have one club in the Atlanta area and I'm an hour and a half away from the city, but there's not a lot going on physically right here. So I would love to be more a part of that. I'm gonna try to get some of those things, and like the Aquashella, if I can get enough traction with this channel and enough things going on. And I have partnered up with F Zone here lately. They've been really cool with offering some. I've got some new videos coming out to offer some discounts to my viewers through them, and so hopefully those things will kind of continue to grow a little bit, and it'll be worth my while to participate in that stuff.
Yeah, there is a big side of this community that you can have the opportunity to meet if you go to some of the events that are get put on. I know for one that's real common for a lot of the content creators, it's in Pennsylvania, which is the Keystone Clash. That seems to be a pretty big East Coast event. Happens, I think, around October or late September. I forget which one. Where around
I'll have
that
to
area.
check that out.
A lot of people, a lot of content creators are go to that event too. Aquashella used to be, and then it went away from that. And I think now that they finally went back to the original owner, they're wanting to bring back what it used to be in the beginning, where it was a lot more content creator driven, which is one of the reasons why that it made that event so appealing to attend. When I was watching, when I started watching YouTube, was you get to go meet all these people you get to watch on their videos and stuff like that. And then they kind of went away from that for a few years, but I think now it's come back again, where they're reaching out.
That has been a massive part of the music community. We have NAMM, the music show, and then we have some small guitar shows in a lot of different cities. Atlanta had their first one. That has been a huge part of actually growing the online music community, is that interactive element.
Yeah, I just think there is, even as a content creator, being able to interact with other content creators in person. It's just, I think there's a big benefit as a content creator, because you get to not only be able to do collaborations together with other people, but ideas.
And well, like what you're doing here with this show is a great service to our entire community. Like you in particular has been a huge impetus to get people together to talk. I don't really see that many other folks putting much effort into it. And I hope they will in the future. I wish I could,
I think some of the bigger channels have, it's a different time though. When they came up, they've had to do it all by themselves to get to where they're at now. And then these channels sometimes get to a certain point, and then all of a sudden everybody wants something from them.
Yeah.
It's not always just there's always like a quid pro quo. It's like, oh, I want to do a collaborate, but it's never
like any other relationship. If you've got some poor dude living in a trailer park and he meets a lady with $10 million, like she's always going to be suspicious that his intentions aren't 100% true.
And unfortunately, a lot of times they're true, because they do have to deal with a lot of that. So it kind of they become hesitant to trying to be as open with other people. I'm more of the idea of trying to build community. And my biggest influence and even in style of doing this is I watch the JRE podcast.
I do as well.
And I've taken a lot of what he's done there as the roots to what I'm doing. And I just like talking to different people and see why they do what they do. And that's kind of been the driving force. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I've kind of shied away from is reaching out to some of the bigger content creators, not because I don't want to talk to them, but because they're always getting hit up for something. Yeah. And I know that if I do this long enough, and there's a point where if I come reaching out to them at some point, they know it's not because I'm trying to get anything out of it. It's really because I want to have a conversation for them.
Yeah.
But that's the only reason. And lately I've had more people, the longer I've been doing this and the more they're aware of it, the more they're willing to accept and go, oh yeah, oh come on. And
No, it's
so
a
that's
great
been
service,
Adrian
man.
is one of
And
them.
oh, is he? Are you getting him on?
Well, we're working on it. It's just we haven't been able to coincide in a time. But he's one of the one of the first bigger channels that I decided that, and I
He's
did
a
it this
great
year. I did it last
inspiration,
year.
man. He's a fantastic
Yeah,
inspiration to all of us. And he is a classic example of like his stuff is so good. But he doesn't get the like his room is so good, but he doesn't
yeah,
get the numbers that some people that maybe have a little bit of a slicker presentation are getting. Um, but man, like his amount of knowledge and just his room in general is a huge inspiration, I think, to everybody.
yeah. I think one of the best things that Nick ever did was introducing him
Yeah,
as to us
yeah,
as hobbyists.
yeah, and kind
Because
of
you can
pushing
tell he's
him
big.
into making some videos.
Yep.
Yeah, you can tell he's
And
not super comfortable in front of the camera, but God,
well,
he's so
I
good
love
at
that he
what he's
likes to
doing.
troll. I love that he likes to troll his trolls. His his person. I guess it's the generational thing though, because he'll give pushback.
Yeah,
And I know one of the biggest things that I guess I didn't I didn't think that was a problem, but apparently it was because he kind of addressed it. Uh, People are always questioning whether he's married or not, and then he brought the picture of Fiona. He had the one video where he was, oh, there's a picture of my wife. I thought that was so funny and clever. And so you know, I just kind of I know he's an interesting character, so I definitely would love to talk to him. But
it's the last
we just
thing
haven't
I'll
been able
say,
to
and then
connect.
I'll let
That's
you
all.
go. Is maybe you can get to the bottom of the massive cultural difference between these Australian fish keepers and what's going on here in America. It seems like it's like you know, if it's like when America had the Olympic basketball team with like Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan and Kareem, and they were playing against like, you know, Ecuador or something. Uh, it seems like they are fish keeping at a higher level on average than we are. I would be interested in what those folks think about that. But yeah, that's exciting, man.
Yeah.
I can't wait to watch him on your show.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? I think in general, the hobby outside of the United States, you know, is very different. I'm one of the great things about being able to do this, and it has been that opportunity to go to other countries and watch. And I've had the opportunity to talk to some people from Europe, and they're it's a different hobby. It
Yeah.
really is a different hobby. Um, I always have this conversation with a friend of mine with Aquafunk. And I tell him I think one of the biggest reasons why our hobby is so different is here in the United States, we're very fortunate that we have a lot of room.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is you're not living in New York where everybody's on top of everybody. So your living area is minimal. Therefore, you kind of if you want to keep aquariums, you're kind of very limited as to the size
Yeah.
and the number. And because you're very limited, you tend to pay more attention
Yeah.
to what you have. Well, where here we have the privilege, especially the further west you move. Like, for example, I'm in a garage. And yeah, I have more tanks. And I've noticed that when I had a lot more tanks, uh, they didn't look as good as they do now, where I have less and I
That's a
focus more
battle
on what I
I
have.
fight. Is like trying to keep it small enough to where I can keep it all the way I want, but you know how it is. We all want 1,000 tanks.
All right, sir. Well, hopefully this is not the last time we get to
Oh, I'd
get
love
to
to do it again.
interact.
This was a great time, man. Thank you for
And
having me.
and I would love for maybe in the future see if we coincide on a fish event
Yeah,
and
that would
be
be
able to
great.
actually get to meet you in person.
That'd be great, man.
But
If we do
yeah,
this
thank you so.
again, maybe we can do it at night so everybody can see my fish room instead of my
Okay,
reject house plants over there in the corner. That
nah, no problem. We could definitely do that. We'll swing. It seems like we still have a lot of ground to cover,
yeah,
and we
absolutely.
only scratched the surface. So, thank you for that, and thanks, Eddie. Vibes Aquatics. Thank you for the super chat. And everybody else that was here with us. Appreciate you guys being here, and we'll see you guys soon. I think the next time you guys will see me, I'll be in Florida, so I'll probably be doing something with funk, and let's see what kind of trouble we get into. You guys take care. See you guys soon, and